Hi, everyone. Welcome. Kelly here, of course. And today I have Theresa Egan from Theresa Egan Studios. I am so excited for this interview because Theresa has not only grown her studio by 2 to 3 times what it
hmm
was when we first started working together, but also, as we were talking about just a moment before we started recording, she's found this wonderful work-life balance because she's still actively performing and has a really, really
hmm
busy performance schedule, and the studio has been supporting that. So we're going to get into a
hmm
lot of details on that today. Theresa,
Yeah.
before I get way too excited and ahead of myself, please tell us just a little bit more about your studio, who you help and work with, and kind of intro yourself.
Great. Well, my name is Theresa Egan. Thank you for the introduction. And I am based in the Chicagoland area. And I have been teaching privately, I want to say, for about 20 years.
Mm.
And teaching has been my main source of income for about 15. And I want to say I've operated my own studio for like in the 10 to 12. There's some lap with or crossover with my first studio job in Chicago. But so I've been on my own for about a decade or so, and I kind of gravitate towards working with professional students,
Mm.
people who are musical theater professionals, people who are, classically oriented professionals, and as well as teenagers who are preparing for college auditions for music and theater. Those were my favorite students to work with. Those were my dream students to work with. And I'm very lucky that for the past several years, I've been able to work primarily with those students. And
That's amazing.
you mentioned performing. I also perform quite regularly in the Chicagoland area in addition to my teaching.
I love that. Well, and we were talking a second ago about that need for some balance in our lives
hmm
because, as you so eloquently said, we are all performance majors for the most part. I
Yeah,
mean, yes, we might have education majors. A lot of those end up, as you said, in the school system.
absolutely.
As a performer first, and as a performance
hmm
major, what does teaching do for you in your career, and why is that such an important part of what you've built into your life and your structure?
Great. Well, I never thought that teaching was necessarily plan B or like
Mm,
my backup. I've always
yeah.
wanted to be a true performing artist, a true teaching artist, somebody who divides their time between teaching and between performing. And especially working with professionals, I discovered that I learned so much about myself working
Oh,
with these
sure.
professional singers. So I guess that the teaching and the performing kind of go hand in hand for me.
Mm.
A lot of times I meet students. Most of my students I actually met doing a show. So it's a huge source of getting students for myself. It's a huge source of me being part of my community, part of the theater and music community in Chicago. My husband and I have been here for 16 years, I think. And it's so teaching and performing kind of just go hand in hand
Mm.
for me. And I feel like as much as I would love performing to pay the bills, that is just not our reality. And so I feel very fortunate that my day job is something that I'm truly passionate
Mm.
about and that I truly love and is now set up in a way to actually support my performing. So and I'm sure we'll talk more about this later,
Yeah,
but for the
absolutely.
first time ever this fall, I did a show and I literally divided myself half and half between teaching and
Mm.
performing. And it was just such a wonderful experience to be able to focus on that show for the times that I needed and to still be there for my students and help them with their goals and their projects. So for me, teaching and performing have always been linked. So
Oh,
I
I
hope
love
that answers
that.
your question.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and
Great.
I think it's important because a lot of us look at. I'll speak about myself specifically. When I was finishing my graduate program with a performance degree, I was looking at sublist
hmm
auditions and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life and where I wanted to land. And the one thing I knew is I just don't want to leave music.
Yeah,
And so teaching felt like that solution for me where I do really enjoy it, of course, but
of
also
course.
it could be that stable income and revenue while I'm funding auditions, while I'm
hmm
preparing and practicing, and you get that balance.
It's
And I think
expensive to be a professional musician.
it
It's
is. It
crazy
is.
expensive.
Well, there's so many like quote unquote opportunities that you have to pay
hmm
for to get ahead and build your career. And it's a headache for sure. So I'm gonna back up a little bit. We first met in May and
Yeah.
you were talking about building the studio at that point. Give us a little overview of what the studio looked like then and maybe some of the frustrations you were having and trying to
Yeah.
grow it to where it is now.
Absolutely. So I think to understand my full story a little bit more, I would like to back up a little bit
Yeah,
to
perfect. Go for it.
what was going on pandemic wise.
Oh
So
God.
the
Yeah.
the pandemic, I think, just decimated everyone's
Hmm.
studio, myself included. So I was able to survive that first year pretty well. I was able to transfer everybody online very successfully. I didn't lose a single student that first year. Like it was pretty remarkable. So I was like, this will be fine. Everything is fine. And then the pandemic kept going. And then, as
Yeah.
you and I have discussed, I started to develop some pretty serious health issues. And so all of a sudden, I'm starting to lose students because everybody's struggling to afford lessons because we're now going into the second year of a pandemic, and all of the, I guess, outside um, organizations that I had partnered
Mm.
with to get students. Like I had a young women's choir I worked with, a couple local theater programs that I worked with, a couple school programs that I was working with. Literally every single one of them within 6 months was cut and they just closed. So
Oh my gosh.
I lost every single like student stream or student base that I had within about 6 months. And due to my
Wow.
health issues, just recruiting and marketing, it was just so overwhelming. And just, going into that second year, you do your best. We all did our best,
Yes.
but there's a lot of outside factors. And when you lose every
Yes.
single organization that you have worked 10 years to
You're
partner
starting
with,
over after
you
10 years. Yeah. Oh
I
my God.
literally felt like I was starting over.
It's
And like I already
brutal.
did that once because I moved from Colorado to Chicago. So I already started over once. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is tough. So by the time I had partnered with you in May, I had about 25 to 30 students on average. And then by the time I partnered with you in May, I only had 5. So it was a pretty dire situation. And
Yeah.
like you said, it was like starting over. So I thought, maybe I should start over the right way because I'm not
Mm.
starting over from scratch. I'm starting over from experience. And
Yes.
that was really, really important. And I was like, I need to invest in my business education
Mm.
in the way
Well,
that I've invested in my performance and teaching education, which is
because it's
why
not
I
covered.
ultimately, it's
It's not
not
covered in any of
why was
them.
I never given a business class? Like, why was I not taught about accounting and marketing? And especially with social media now, like these are such useful, important tools. And I just didn't,
Yes.
and we do our best. And I did really well for many, many years. But then, pandemics happened and my health took a turn for the worst. So, yeah, so that's kind of just how I ended up coming here. And I think that a lot of people probably had something similar where it wasn't just the pandemic. There was some other huge factor that happened over the past couple of years, either health or, relationship, whatever. Everybody had something awful
Yeah.
happen in addition to the
It was
pandemic.
just a wild, wild few years, which it's,
Absolutely.
in one hand, I think there's almost some, at least I feel this way. I think there's some solace in knowing that you aren't the only person that went through
Mm-hmm.
those challenges and was experiencing
Absolutely.
that. And at the same time, it's frustrating because you're looking around at the world and you're like, why did we all have to do this at the same
At the
time?
same
Like,
exact time.
who's holding us together?
Like,
Because we're
what
all
is
just
happening?
stressed.
Yeah.
Oh my
So,
God. Oh my God.
absolutely.
So the studio at that point, we, like you said, we had 5 students.
5
And one thing that
students.
I remember us talking about in some of the challenges too was a little bit of instability even within those 5. Like
Yeah.
you've had a lot of past students, so sometimes people would kind of
Mm-hmm.
pop in and out for lessons,
Mm-hmm.
but it meant that the revenue was just all over the place and
Absolutely.
inconsistent,
Absolutely.
which, when we're trying to pay bills and live a life is not ideal.
Especially with the medical bills that I suddenly, I mean, we literally
Oh,
had
yeah.
$10,000 worth of medical bills for the
Oh,
first couple of years.
oh
That
my
is a
God.
tremendous amount of money.
Oh, that's
And
stressful too,
so
to just be weighing on you like that. Oh
all
my
the
God.
time, and when I had, 25 to 30 students, when 5 of them didn't come because they had, play rehearsal or
Yeah,
soccer or whatever, it was fine because I had the numbers
right.
to make up for that. But with 5 students, if just 1 or 2 didn't come, I mean, even when all 5 of them came, I still couldn't pay
Mm.
my bills and make ends meet. So it was a stressful time for sure.
This is such a unique challenge, I think, too, when we're talking about adults and performers and our more
Hmm.
high achieving students, especially in the
Yeah,
vocal studio. You guys do these big show runs, and
all the time,
I'm saying you guys. Obviously, I'm a
constantly.
clarinetist, so this is not my realm of existence. But you do these big show runs, and
We
students,
do.
even though they need to be in lessons to help, take care of their voice and be practicing and approaching everything in a healthy way, but then also preparing for said show and performance. A lot of times, lessons are the first thing to go because
Well,
they're overwhelmed
yeah.
and overscheduled.
And honestly, when you're doing, I have some students who are doing Broadway national tours actually. And when you have an 8 show a week schedule and you're
Where are you fitting this
traveling,
in?
when you're traveling, in a different city every few days, I almost, as much as I needed the money, I didn't feel like I could, in good conscience, tell them they should have a lesson.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
we're a different type of instrument. We wear out pretty darn quick, and I
yes,
think that's true for all musicians, but for singers, I
sure,
can only speak for
absolutely,
singers. When you're doing 8 shows a week, that's pretty darn demanding. And
yes,
I understood they needed to take the time off when I do that kind of a schedule too. I've done that 5 to 8 show a week schedule too. You don't have anything left. So
yes.
it became a challenge because these are the students I wanted to work with. These were the students I was
Mm.
passionate about working with. But there was very sometimes students have the worst excuses for canceling their lessons. But in the case of my professionals and my advanced teenagers, they were valid reasons for needing to cancel, and one that, as a vocal health professional, I needed to support.
Right, right.
So that's a
Well,
challenge.
and building that stability is, as we have crafted the stability and the
Mhm.
packages in your program, that is not just for your benefit, of course. It is for the benefit of your students, so that there is some
Absolutely.
consistency in that. So I want to talk a little bit about how we've solved these challenges,
Yes,
and
that's the
in
exciting part.
and so in this instability, for example,
Mhm.
we've made some changes to how you actually put together your lesson packages and
Mhm.
schedule lessons for these professionals. Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about what's working well and what your students are really
Yes.
appreciating there.
So one of the biggest things that has come out, I mean, there's so many wonderful things that have come out of this experience, but one of the biggest ones that has really, really helped my professionals in general is the video audio exchange idea.
Mm.
They have, because these people who do these 8 shows a week, they're on tour, sometimes they need a little help, but finding that time in their schedule,
Mm.
do they have an hour of singing in them extra, that's really
Yes,
challenging. So the video audio exchanges have been tremendously helpful for my students, specifically the professionals, but also the high schoolers too. I Just to keep her anonymous, I had a young woman, a young teenager the other day preparing for, like, her she's in her senior year, and she is preparing for their big, like, showcase,
mm.
and she was so stressed out, and we had already had our lesson, but she was just, panicked and scared, as they all do. We've all been there. And so I was like, you have a video audio exchange. Just record your rehearsal, record your dress
Mm.
rehearsal, and send it to me. And then she did, and I gave her all this positive feedback because, of course, it was great. Of course, she was ready. Of course, the
Right.
technical issue that happened wasn't her fault. Don't stress.
Oh
Like,
God, yeah, that's not going to help.
right? Like, who cares? The microphone people will figure out the sound system. That's not on
That's their
you.
job, not
So
yours. Yeah, you're fine. You're
these
fine.
are adults who are getting paid for this. It'll be fine. Like, but just to have that kind of feedback, to have that kind of reassurance, it has been
Mm.
remarkably beneficial for my students. And it has been a wonderful way to generate extra income for me. And so
Yes,
it's, they're not as pricey as a regular lesson, but they're also a fraction of the time. So I'm generating a good amount of extra income in that way, which is wonderful for me, but also allows me to be flexible for my students who are on
absolutely.
tour or who have, bachelor's degrees in voice and who just need some help for that audition, to prepare for that audition. So the video audio exchanges has been remarkable. They take advantage of that one constantly, which is really, really wonderful. But also just offering them certain plans, having
Mm.
different plans available to help their specific needs and what that
Right.
person in particular needs. That's also been really beneficial for my professional students in particular, and as well as just helping me, and we may talk more about this later, but you've helped me design some classes and some workshops and master classes and things like that, which my professionals request constantly. They love them because it's one afternoon, it's one afternoon as opposed to a regular thing. So just all these ideas that I've had in the past, but didn't know how to execute. And it's really nice to finally see some of these things come to life that I have wanted to do forever, but I just didn't. How do you price a master class and make it work for you? So that's been really beneficial for them to offer more education, more training, and to tailor it specifically for what they need, because I can offer a masterclass in breath support or audition cuts, or I'm doing a movement for singers masterclass. Yeah.
Nice.
So,
I like
right.
that.
Which is really necessary. It's
That's
really
awesome.
necessary. And now I know how to run that, and I'm able to help people. And that feels really good. So I shouldn't say I'm not just offering private lessons. I offer a whole range now of educational opportunities, and there's a plan to fit everyone's need. And that feels really good to be able to offer that.
Absolutely. Well, especially because your performance cycles also ebb and flow. So when you've got the time, like right now, I think we're in between shows. If we've got a little more time
We're
right
taking
now,
some time off.
good, well deserved. And also because you have this time now, you get to put the energy into, like, for example, these workshops. You can sort of turn the dial a little on the things that you want to. And then when you're in the middle of a show, obviously we're not hosting master classes when you're really busy.
I, for the first time in my life, took off Tech Week and opening weekend completely. Because when you do a professional show, that's a 40-hour commitment. So at least. So you're already working a full-time job during Tech Week and opening weekend. And oftentimes when you go into performances, so it's like, oh my gosh. So I was
squeezing
able
in
to
lessons is not happening.
No, and I was exhausted. Like physically, emotionally, mentally, vocally, I was exhausted. So being able to have that time and have my students be okay with that time. They're also performers. I also make the accommodations for them when they need time off for their tech weeks. So it just feels good. It feels like we are working together now to help each other. It's almost like, because I work with so many adults, it's almost like we're our team. We have a team. Like we're
absolutely
partners in this together, and that feels really good.
I love that.
Yeah, that feels really good.
Like, well, and to give a little context to, in case anyone's listening and they're like, well, what do you mean, like different packages, and what does this look like? A lot of what we've done with Theresa's studio, and I'll just kind of give a quick overview if it's okay, Theresa.
Yes,
so we've built in a flat rate tuition, of course, for your weekly students, and a lot of those are more of your high school students, those preparing for college auditions, the ones that need more regular support. And then for some of your professional students, we still did a flat rate tuition, but we scaled it back a little bit so that they're not getting a weekly lesson. We call this like an a la carte subscription. They're getting 1, 2, 3 lessons per month that they can go in and schedule when it's convenient for them, when it's in your schedule and available. So you've got more flexibility. And then as part of those packages, for some of your students, you are just building in those video exchanges or those audio exchanges where we kind of do an asynchronous lesson on top of that too.
Absolutely.
Correct?
And they love that. That is always such a big, I guess, selling factor for lack of a better word. They love that. They love it. And it feels like such a value.
Support. Yes, it's a value add, so we can charge more, of course, because it's worth it, the time and energy. It's flexible for you in your schedule. You don't have to do that at 5 p.m. every day. You can fit it in wherever it's convenient. The other big benefit of those asynchronous for your professional students is I'm just picturing like they get off stage in rehearsal or they get off stage from performance and they're like, something really did not feel good in that. Why did it feel so weird? And they can send a quick recording to you or a quick voice drop, and you can help them work through that so that the next time they do that, they're not hurting themselves or straining themselves, and you can give them those tools. That's so important.
It's so important. And I would say that they use the video audio exchanges the most preparing for auditions. So,
Mm,
because they don't need, and these are people with bachelor's degrees in
right.
voice. They
Right.
need the lessons because we all need lessons, but
Hmm.
they don't need lessons every single week. They really just need the 20 minutes of audition prep for their
Yeah.
32 bar cut that is literally 30 seconds long. Like they don't need a whole lesson. These are people who don't have a lot of money. They're professionals. They're, we're all in the same boat. So offering these video audio exchanges as part of their tuition package has been ridiculously helpful. But I also offer them a la carte now too.
Good.
So
They can
my
just add as
other
they need them.
and I have some students who just do those, who are, area professionals or community members who just do that to prepare for an audition. So it's really nice. That's been a
That's
game
awesome.
changer for me.
That is awesome. And
Mm-hmm.
creating that stability on both sides, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
is obviously something that's grown your studio a lot too.
Yeah.
And when we look at the numbers, we're talking about 5 students in May. At this point in time, I think we said we have about 15 that are coming on a regular basis. And of
Yes.
course, we have
Yes.
more that kind of add on and
Yeah.
everything. That's
That
part of
pop
working
in
at the
and out.
professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the revenue has grown significantly as well. So we're at that kind of 2
Significantly.
to 3
Like
times per month.
beyond my wildest expectations of what I
Oh,
thought was possible, to be
oh
honest.
my
So
gosh.
it seems like one of
What?
those like fakey infomercials you'll never believe. Click this one link, ask me how. But it's not. It worked, and it worked easily. And I mean, it was hard work, but it
Right.
worked immediately. I saw results
Mm.
right away. So yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And I want to, you said it's a lot of work. I want to talk about the work a little bit
Yes.
because when we're trying to balance all of this, I think something that was a concern for me when I first started my studio again after grad school. I know it was a concern for you when we first met. Something a lot of people kind of cycle through in their mindset is, okay, I have the skill. I know I can teach. I know where I can fit the teaching, but the business part of it is
Oh,
scary and
gosh,
overwhelming. And where am I putting that?
that's
Where am I going to find the
horrible.
time to market? Where am I going to find the time to do all of this?
How do I
So
market?
right. So
Like,
not only, and we're an open book here, so not only what worked for you, but how have you been structuring your life? And especially in this kind of like 6 month period where the studio has really taken off, what has been working for you in the planning of that and then also the actual activity in your marketing?
great. I think the biggest difference for me is, just to talk a little bit about the flat rate tuition, is it essentially turned me into a salaried employee. So I was no longer an hourly employee. I was a
Yes.
salaried employee, which I've never had a salaried position before. Even teaching for other studios when I first
Mm,
started, like they were hourly. They were, the 1099 contract. So just the mindset of the fact that now I am a salaried employee. So I don't have to work the same number of hours every day. I can work I have the way I have it scheduled now, I used to work 5 days a week, and I would try to work that 8 hour day, even if I didn't have really anything to do because I felt like I had to,
yeah.
like I would try to
Yeah.
work at least that 6, 7, but usually 8 hours a day. Cause like, you got to hustle. You got to be busy. You got to make it happen. You got to market, you got to make those connections, all those things. And that's just, you don't need to work 8 hours a day. You just don't. You just need your work to be effective. And
Right.
and that is the big
Right.
difference. So I am now currently teaching 3 days a week. And then I have a fourth day for just whatever I need: makeup lessons, office work, auditions, my own lessons, my own classes, doctor's appointments, like all these things. And so I went from working, trying to make that magic 40-hour a week
Mm,
happen, that I was getting paid for maybe 15 of those hours, 15, 20 hours if I was lucky. I went from working that to, oh gosh, I mean, I don't even know. I work way less than 40 hours a week unless I'm doing a show right now. So
yeah.
when I'm just teaching, I mean, it's probably closer to the 25 or 30 range. And every hour that I'm working, I'm now being paid for because I'm now a salaried employee. And the mindset behind that is gigantic. So for instance, the other night I had to stay after a lesson and finish a little office work, and that would have just been awful years ago, because here it is, 8 o'clock at night, and I'm still working. But but now it's like, well, it doesn't matter because, I'm a salaried employee, and sometimes you got to work a little late, and you know what? I have tomorrow off. So
And you feel
like
so valued because of that.
I
Like,
feel
your students
it's so
value you
funny.
that much. Yes.
It's so funny. And my husband and I keep joking that I gave myself a raise. Like because I gave myself a huge raise,
Yes.
and it feels really good. So I feel like I am valuing my own time, and I feel like I'm valuing my own work. And I feel like, not that your income is reflective of your value as a person, but I feel like my hard work is finally being compensated for. And at the beginning of the month, all this money goes into my account. And then I'm not having to play that game of, well, this bill isn't due until this time, and this bill isn't due until this time, so I'm going to pay this one first. And I think I can be,
Yeah.
and then hoping everyone shows up so that I can pay that bill at the end of the month. That's stressful. I just now have the money to pay my bills at the beginning of the month. I have an IRA set up now for retirement. I know. Like, what?
I love that.
What?
So, like, we're officially adulting is like that big revelation.
Right? I mean, I'm officially adulting. I have retirement plans, and I have a savings account, and I know, like, I have to replace my hot water heater because it's just, it needs to be replaced. And I can actually afford to do that. And I know that I can take that money out of my savings, and I can replace the water heater that needs to be replaced. And I will be able to replace that money in a very short amount of time. So I think my day to day, it's just, honestly, really, Kelly, it's just, I value myself more. My time is valued. I feel that, my income level is finally reflecting the hard work that I have done for 20 years. And that feels really good. It feels really good to.
Oh, you just said that. I'm getting a little emotional.
Oh, good. No, it is.
Oh, God.
It is so because we're told as musicians from the time we're practically children that you should be a starving artist. You should suffer for your art. And that's, I don't want to, I want to keep the language PG here, but that's a bunch of what because we have as much education as lawyers in many cases, and as doctors and these other highly paid, highly respected professionals. We start studying our instruments before we can read in some cases. I mean, by the time you're 25 years old in musical theater, you've been practicing and dancing usually for 20 years.
Yep. It is shocking how much goes into it. Like the whole 10,000 hour rule, when that got really popular, like what, 15 years ago?
I was 15 by the time I made that.
Like every musician was like, well, that's a joke. Try like 50,000 hours.
Yeah, okay. It's like, well, I had that done by the time I was in high school. And so I think just finally, what we do is so important, like doctors may save lives, but musicians, we save souls. And that's important work. That's important work. And I, I don't want to be like, oh, I don't do it for the money, but I still need to pay my bills.
Well, and art for the sake of art is wonderful, of course. Like, we make music for the sake of music, but also at a certain point, and what I'm hearing you say in your experience in this too, and I have certainly felt this myself, at a certain point when you're doing the art for the sake of the art, and the music for the sake of the music, but you're not making any money, that becomes so stressful that you almost come to a point where you don't totally resent it, but those feelings start to creep in.
Absolutely.
Like, and why am I doing this? Why did I make this decision for my life?
Exactly. I thought about changing paths and changing careers so many times. And in fact, I don't believe I shared this with you in our original consultation, but about a year before I met with you and joined Outside the Box, I actually really considered doing something else, like completely leaving. I was just so frustrated. I was so sick. And just health-wise, and I was like, I can't do this. This is a difficult, stressful industry. And there's a lot of uncertainty, and there will always be uncertainty in this industry. And I agree. I think we've all been there. Like, I can't do this. I love this, but it's killing me, and it's killing me not to do it. So what do you do?
Yes.
Like, I have to
Yes.
make music. You do too. It's in us. That's why we went to college. That's why we teach. We have to make music. We have to do this. There's something in us that won't allow us to do anything else. So it's kind of a horrible situation to be in, honestly, because
It's messed up.
we can't do anything else, but we can't make a living doing this. And so what do you do? So this program for me has really shown me that my education is out, like, just off the charts, the amount of education that I have and the amount of training that I have and what I have to offer people, and that it is possible to make a living and pay your bills and be comfortable and do something that you love. Isn't that what we were told to do as children? Right? Weren't we told to go into something we were passionate about, and then we all did, and they're all like, oh, well, suffer for your art. What?
Yeah, some of that got lost in translation, I think.
There's a lot of disconnect there. Like,
go study your passion. And also, when you go study your passion and pay oodles and oodles of money for music school, they're not going to teach you how to ever make that money back.
Right? Oh my gosh. Some of my friends have close to 6 figures in debt. And I'm like, you're never going to pay that back. Like, you can't. You just can't.
It's
even
so
in other
stressful.
industries, it's tough to pay that back. But in this one, just forget it. Like, you're just not, you just can't do it. So it feels good to feel like I can do what I'm sincerely passionate about and support myself, and even not just support myself, but the stuff that I've learned in this program. I could be the primary breadwinner in my family. Like, even with my health issues and I'm being limited to working more of not a part-time schedule, but an altered schedule. Even with that, I could still be the primary breadwinner in my family if something were to happen. If my husband were to lose his job, or whatever. So that feels good to know that not only am I good right now in this moment, I have the tools to be good in the next moment, next year, in 5 years. Like, I feel that the sense of security. There's such a sense of security that I didn't think was possible unless you're working at maybe like the top levels, unless you're that tenured professor, which there's like 5 of those positions available now. So unless you're like one of the lucky few tenured professors, or one of the legends on actual Broadway, so it feels good to know that you can have security and you can have the life that you deserve to have.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to ask, this is a little side jaunt. I want to ask a more personal question.
Absolutely.
If this is
Go
okay.
Go for it.
As you're talking about this value and how you feel like you're valuing yourself more, and you're finding that value in your work because of the flat rate and having this more steady and stable income and all these wonderful things that are happening. I'm wondering if that value that you're seeing in your business for yourself is translating to other areas of your life, and if so, how that maybe is impacting you on a personal level.
Oh, I'm sure it's absolutely impacting me. I'm finally the person I knew I could always be. I'm finally the teacher I knew I could always be. I'm finally the studio owner. And now I'm going to get a little emotional, but I've worked for 20 years and I'm finally there. And that feels good.
Gosh dang it, Theresa. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Oh my God. No. I opened that door. I did it to myself.
It's true. And I think we all have this idea of what we want this job to be and what we want this life to be. And the idea that we all have as kids and in high school and college, I mean, we all know that's not real. We all know that I can't just make it to Broadway just like that.
It's a little romanticized, a little oversimplified.
The Met Opera is probably not gonna hire me, and that's okay, because I can still have an amazing career in performance. And right now, my original plan, I wanted to be a university professor, and then as I started to look more into that path many years ago, I realized that it has its own mess of problems, and it's not necessarily the stability that I need it to be. So the studio was was it was like, I can make more money teaching privately than I do make more money now teaching privately than some of my university professor colleagues, which is shocking and a whole other conversation of why that's wrong. But
Yeah.
it's
Whole other can of worms for
finally
sure.
right after all this time, my vision that I had, what I knew I was capable of doing, is my reality. I am literally dividing my time between performing and teaching.
Oh
I'm
my
making
gosh.
a livable income. I'm not working. I mean, obviously when I'm doing a show, I do have to work a little bit more. But in general, when I'm not doing a show, I maybe work 30 hours a week. And with my health issues, that is literally life changing for me, to have that extra day off to just rest if I need, or to just take, to do the extra stuff. So I am finally at the place where I always knew I was capable of being. And that's, I mean,
Wow.
so yeah,
Oh
the
my gosh.
confidence, because it's the vision finally matches the reality. And that, I mean, it's so funny because it's been 9 months. So it kind of feels a little bit like, I mean, it feels a little bit like a labor or a birthing process, but it just feels so good because after all the pandemic stuff, after all my health issues, a couple years ago, I thought I was going to have to retire from performing, that it was that bad. And to not only come back from the pandemic, not only to get my health under control, not only to get back in the performance world, but to actually get my studio to the place where I always knew I was capable of. And to have that kind of stability is just, it's remarkable. I mean, it's beyond life changing. So thank you. Thank you
You are,
to
oh
everyone.
my gosh. Of course. And you are so deserving of that, Theresa. I
And
mean,
I think
to
we
be in
all
this
are,
place,
right?
yes. Yes. And
We
it
are
makes me
all
so happy to
deserving.
see you coming into that, because I think when you're right. We all leave high school like bright eyed and bushy tailed and like ready to
Yeah,
take
like
on
we
the
can do
world, and
it.
we're all
We're
going
going
to
to
be
be the
amazing. It's going to be
exception.
great. Like, I remember my middle school guidance counselor told me that I was going to be delivering pizzas when I told him I wanted to be a music major. So on the off chance that he's watching this, this is really what it can look like on the other side. But in
Right.
reality, that vision that we all have, it is there. It might not be a one-to-one. Like we might not all end up, playing principal in the orchestra or
Yeah.
singing on Broadway, of course,
Yeah.
but that's okay, because the
That's
industry is a
okay.
lot larger than we actually think it is. And so
Yeah.
that initial view that you had was so, it's almost sheltered.
You only see this part.
Right.
You're seeing this
Right.
much of like
You miss
this
everything else.
whole experience. And those
It's
people on
amazing.
Broadway, what we don't talk about is they only do those contracts for a certain amount of time, and then they have to hustle like the rest of us. So
Yep.
unless you're a big, huge star, you only have that stability for a short
Yeah.
amount of time, and then you're out there hustling like the rest of us. So I
Absolutely.
don't want to hustle anymore. Like I want to work at a consistent pace, and I want to have time for my life, because as much as I love teaching, my life is there's other areas of my life too. So
Yep.
it's again, it comes down to that work-life balance. So everything feels good now. That's a good way of saying things feel good. Things feel relaxed. Things feel just like the stress of the pandemic is still there, of course. There's still stuff going on. The world is a mess, but at least I feel like I can pay my bills. At least I feel like I can support my students and help people in the way I've always wanted to help people. I feel like I can be part of my community and feel like, I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's just a sense of
That
calm,
security. Yep.
that security that I don't think I've ever felt as an adult, which is horrifying if you think about it.
It is. And also, you're here now, and that's the most important
Yeah.
part. And I just, as we kind of wrap up right now, I just want to say thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing all of this. I
Absolutely.
know, I mean, we got kind of deep today, and I really appreciate you
That's
going there with
okay,
me.
but it's such an
So
emotional
proud of
thing,
you.
and I think
It is.
that's one of the hard things about what we do is we work in a very passionate and emotion driven industry, and it's really
yeah.
easy we feel things heavy. We feel things hard. We feel things fully. We have to. We're musicians. We have to have that for our jobs. Like our
Yep.
livelihoods depend on that. Our livelihoods depend on being emotional and being passionate and being unafraid to express emotion and feelings. But business is not emotional. It is. It is like, it feels like the very opposite.
Oh,
It
yeah.
feels like it couldn't be further from what we do. And so to step into that world, like, it's hard. I want to help people. I understand that nobody has money, but I still need to pay my mortgage and pay my
Oh,
medical
yeah.
bills. So it's
Oh, yeah.
nice to finally feel like I can combine these two in a way that feels comfortable to me, in a way that I feel like I'm sure I don't know if this is relevant or not, but like when we worked through how to do the lesson consultations, you helped me develop a literal script. As an actor, yes, thank you. Like I had that memorized.
Need to know the words and the order.
No, I had it memorized like that. I was like, sit down, memorize. It was just so useful to have a script, have something follow, to combine these two industries, these two fields in a way that was productive and a way that felt good. It felt overwhelming sometimes because that's life. That's anytime you learn a new skill. But in general, it felt like it was a nice, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Or, oh yeah, I understand that. Or, oh, that's how you ask for this thing. Or that's how you enforce this policy. Or, so it was nice to have that business education to go along with all the passionate artistic stuff that we've all worked on
little
since
structure.
we were children. Right?
A little structure to the chaos and the
Exactly.
passion that we have.
Exactly.
Oh, it just makes me so happy. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you again for sharing.
I appreciate everybody's support. It's been a remarkable 9 months, and I'm so excited for the future. It's been hard to be excited about the future recently, hasn't it? So it feels good to be excited.
To know what's on the other side finally.
And
to be there.
To know that if something happens, like when the water heater goes out, that's fine. I can take care of it. It feels like I'm coming out of fight or flight, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely it does.
So
absolutely it does. Oh my gosh. I think this is going to be so helpful for so many people to hear because
I hope
this
so.
sense of security, I think, is what we're all looking
for in
life.
Takeaway. It's the biggest takeaway. So anyone listening, I mean, if you're on the fence, just do it. Do it. Invest in yourself. Always take that risk on yourself, right? If you're going to take a risk, if you're going to make that investment, bet on yourself. Always bet on yourself. So if anyone is out there listening and you're unsure, if you just get support in any way you can, you're not alone. Yeah, you're not alone. So that's my best advice to people.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Kelly.